All right. So welcome to the April 22nd, 2024 Special City Council meeting. If we would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you call the roll?
Councilmember Stones. Present. Graves.
Here.
Dalby.
Here.
Armstrong.
Here.
Beach. Here. Richardson.
Present.
Mayor Erickson.
Present. Moving on to item 4, public consideration. Under that, we have the fiscal year 2025 budget. I need a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding the adoption of the fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
Thank you. Jackie?
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Armstrong.
Oh, it's Melissa and Josh. I'm
No, I
sorry.
was saying he was going first. Sorry, I made the motion.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
My bad. Skip Rod, that's fine.
Councilmember Dalby.
Aye.
He's forgettable.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Stones. Graves.
Aye.
All right, we are now in the public hearing. Ed, I will turn it over to you.
Good. Mayor and Council, I just wanted to extend that appreciation once again as we've been going through a lot of changes to the budget process, trying to increase transparency, trying to get you more involved in the budget process throughout, all while doing that with limited staff and trying to learn as we go and figure things out. And so as I stated in my weekly report, this is a work in process. I hope you feel like the trajectory is the right direction. And we truly appreciate your support as a council and guiding the ship through it and making sure that we're going down the direction that we need to go for the sake of our community. The council has met several times to work through the budget process this year. We've had 2 budget retreats where we evaluated the needs of the different departments and went through and ranked all of those needs as well. The council on many occasions has reviewed the budget. We have a new budget tool that has been sent out so that the council can get involved right down to the line item level, which is a first, I think, to try to get that information to you. And of course, we had the budget meetings just prior, and I sent out an updated version of the budget. Tonight is the final night. Tonight is the public hearing where the council can listen to the voice of the public and then proceed accordingly. It is essential by state code that you pass a budget this evening. Passing a budget allows our community to move forward, and there's some serious ramifications if we did not go down that path. So where do we stand today? From the budget that was proposed and set forth, the council had 3 directives for the council to follow. One was to remove the vehicles and not proceed with the debt service, to plan for vehicle purchases in the future. And that would reduce, that in effect would reduce property taxes as well. So that was directive number 2, to lower property taxes. And then the directive to increase general fund reserves to 30% as a minimum. And so with those directives, we went back and made the changes. So this is where the new tax rate would lay at $13.46 total for the city of Indianola, which is a reduction for $13.55 in the fiscal year 24. And we will be working to communicate this as well through the property tax calculation notification that we're doing, and 3 city managers in Warren County are getting together with our counterpart in Warren County to put a video and podcast together to explain this from a countywide perspective and to be able to share how property taxes are used, how things are moving forward, how we're working as communities to collaborate and work together. That is going to be recorded and broken down into segments so that if somebody's only interested in a certain portion, they can look at that maybe 3-minute part, or they can watch a whole half an hour to that hour video of the 3 managers and Megan from the county go through that. With that, we want to be very overt and transparent about how those dollars are used. So every dollar of tax dollars that come into that is paid by a resident of Indianola is divvied up. First of all, the monies that come in, we consider to be very precious, and we want to make sure that every tax dollar is used appropriately and with transparency. And so the money that somebody spends on their property taxes is broken down. 33 cents comes to the city of Indianola. Of course, money does go to the school district in Warren County and DMAC, Assessor's Office, Agricultural Extension, and others. And so it's important to note that just a portion of the taxes paid by our residents comes to the city itself. And then for every dollar that we actually receive, how we're utilizing those dollars for public safety purposes, parks and recreation, for our library, for general administration and capital projects, and for amenities like our pool. So it's really important to know that the quality of life that we provide our residents is really based on this setup. This is the foundation for the state of Iowa and how we fund local government. With that said, I previously went through the city of Indianola's fund structure and color coded those so that the council has greater insight into all of the different funds that it has. And one of the things that we were really overt about, uber transparent, if you will, is that historically we've had monies come to pay for overhead from one fund to another. And those would be in large buckets. And we have now broken those down so that it's a 1-for-1. Every single thing that's getting transferred from one area to another is very clear and identifiable. And it sets you on a course so that you have good understanding of how those dollars are used and to ensure that transfers are handled appropriately. That was, of course, provided to you both in a 1.0 version of the budget and now 1.1 version that you had received a couple weeks ago. And with that information and with that directive, the council set this public hearing, which requires a 10-day notification. It allows us to be here tonight on April 22nd so that you can pass your budget prior to the April 30th deadline. And with the directives that the council provided, we went back to the rankings that were done. So going back to those retreats, we did review the equipment and vehicles. Of course, equipment is still moving forward for those things that are purchased operationally. But vehicles that were considered as part of the bond are put on hold as we reevaluate and we take a look at the priorities that we have, which are really to put a focus in on the public safety building. And every single department director affected is 100% behind your decision. Nothing is as important as moving forward with meeting the public safety needs of our community through the construction of a new public safety city hall building. That was ranked #1 by the council. It was ranked #1 by the staff as well, across the board for all projects. And so all of those projects, you can see where the new public safety building, that whole ranking process. And so using this information and the ranking that the council provided, the changes we made were to remove or suspend a number of projects in the overall budget. And that was with intent to protect the reserves of the city, but also to ensure that we're following the prioritization that you as a council have set. And so with that said, we want the council to be very much involved in budget amendment changes throughout the year going forward. So as you find that you want to have changes, you can certainly put things back in or can make adjustments going forward. So a budget is not something necessarily set in stone, but it's something that has to be passed this evening in order to meet state code requirements. Personnel was another ranking, and with the directives of the council, we took that and eliminated the utility technician position, put a 6-month hold on the engineer's position, half cut, so that it would not start until January. That is present some capacity issues on some of our projects, but we feel that we can handle that. We did put a hold on the hiring of assistant library position, but we know that the needs of the library have been there for many years. And so that holds and actually does work well with Michelle and her needs. Going forward, as far as the timing of hiring, we eliminated one of the 2 intern positions and we cut back a little bit on the travel and training. With that is the overall budget. I can answer any questions.
Since we're on this slide, I know on Friday that me and you talked a little bit about the assistant engineer position and assistant librarian position. That we could bring that back to the council in December and see where we are financially and then make the decision if we want, and probably earlier, actually.
So what you just actually walked into is a really good thing to know. A budget is just that. It is your capacity to exercise and improve things going forward. It gives you the ability to do that without taking council action other than the authority to make that purchase. So for example, South K Street, you have a budget for a certain amount of money to spend for South K Street, but you don't actually, you exercise a contract against that budget going forward. The budget doesn't mean you're gonna spend the whole amount. The budget means you have the authority to spend that amount. But you will go through a process to evaluate all the contractors, to negotiate with a contractor, and then to set a contract with that. And so long as it within the amount that the council has established as your budget, then you have the authority to approve it. If by chance all of the bids came in higher than the budget, you would have to amend your budget before you could approve that contract. So a budget is really the establishment of the parameters by which you as a council can operate in the new year. It doesn't necessarily authorize all of these things going forward. But you do have the freedom to change those parameters in future budget. But that's a great question. Thank you. And you're right. As a 6-month position, we recognize fully that there are things that could affect the council. Interest rate changes, we see cost of living changes, we see an election coming up. What is the changes and the impacts that it might have on the city budget after an election in November? All of those things make it so that you may want to pivot going forward, and you have the freedom to do that. You are the city's elected leaders.
Also, one of the reasons I've asked for the percentages that we see on those budgets on a regular basis as well. So everybody has the opportunity to kind of keep track of where we are in spending.
Correct. And it's probably important to know that by following state code, you have exercised the appropriate transparent steps with the public to be able to collect things like property taxes. And if along that path we missed some kind of a step, that could dramatically impact the city's ability to meet its current and future obligations with regard to revenue collections if we don't adhere to the steps, every step along the way.
Any comments, questions?
Public comments.
I do have a question.
Sure.
On the slide with the 3 objectives. And I don't know if it was the first or second budget retreat, we had expressed concerns with the reallocation of lost money. And I see in the budget several transfers, and following through the budget spreadsheet, looks like we are depleting the lost fund to a point where an increase to sewer rates would be necessary going forward. Perhaps.
So, and keep going.
Just when I went to look at like the $1.3 million transfers, for example, the note on there was to repay ourselves for the purchase of the Regions Bank building. But I thought when that purchase happened, you said specifically that we would repay ourselves out of the bond.
So there's lots of questions that you asked.
I know. It was because I followed it through, and it was all kind of a convoluted thing.
So let me answer each one of those individually, and happy to do so. So when it came to transfers, so there's, maybe you address the normal day-to-day transfers, and then I'll address the $1.3 million transfer and any other questions that you have going forward. Oh, sewer rate increases. I think that was the third thing that you were talking about. Maybe that's the easy one to answer. If more lost funds will come in, and so we don't anticipate that the utilization of the lost requires that there will be a need to raise sewer rates. We don't anticipate that at all, because even though there's a large fund balance there, you are bringing revenue in each year and expending money out each year. And the revenue coming in is used to pay the debt service on the sewer and any other authorized purchase using lost dollars. And as revenue over expenditures occurs over many years, that creates the fund balance. So just utilizing that fund balance doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to meet your debt service on your sewer. We fully anticipate that you will without having to raise rates for that purpose. Transfers in general, it used to be that we would have transfers from, for example, from the sewer department to the general fund. And there would be one line item and the general fund would catch it in one line item. But really what it was for is lots of different small things. Every department pays for its own proportionality of overhead. And the dollars coming from sewer might go into a bucket that might receive dollars from other areas. And those weren't always matching up one for one. And it became really hard to follow. And that's why we went through a process this year to enumerate each one of those. So every single transfer out is now counted. When you throw a ball, it's going to be caught by one bucket and they can tie exactly. And so if anything, it's uber transparent to ensure that one, no transfers are handled inappropriately. They're all very overt and you can see those as a council. It doesn't change the way we've always done it and it doesn't change it the way we're going forward. It just makes it more transparent in its processing. And then the $1.3 million. So the purpose of LOST was for the sewer treatment plant debt service, $1 million, or for the use of public safety, for public safety buildings and the facilitation of public safety buildings. We may transfer up to $1.3 million, but that doesn't mean you have to transfer all of the $1.3 million. It gives you the capacity. And in fact, we anticipate that it would be less than that. However, we depleted our general fund reserves significantly when we purchased the Regions Bank building as a temporary location for our city hall and public safety services so that we could facilitate the entire construction process. Because we depleted the general fund reserve so much, that step actually restores the general fund reserves and pushes the general fund reserves back to where it is requested by the council to be at or above 30%. So it's now at 34% with those changes. Now, if you don't transfer the whole 1.3, then maybe it's 32% or 31% or something like that. But that gives you the freedom to make that decision as you go forward on how much you want to transfer to ensure that you always have the adequate capacity to have your general fund reserves. And it is an authorized use of LOST for that intended purpose. Zach, did you want to say anything else? So again, it's the capacity to go up to, but not a requirement to do the whole thing or any portion there.
Here's my concern on that. When LOST was passed, we said that it would go to pay off the debt on that. And now we're kind of changing.
Not at all. So yes, LOST was passed to pay the debt, and the debt service payment that has been going into the sewer fund is $1 million to make that LOST transfer each year. And that $1 million is paying the debt service payment, and it's going forward for the next 20 or 30 years, whatever the term of the debt is, and it will continue to perpetuate. We can't pay debt off early because the bond covenants don't allow us to pay the debt off early. And so money coming in from future loss, from future sales within our community will be used to make future debt service payments until it's fully exhausted and the debt service for the sewer treatment plant is fully paid off. So that is still perpetuating, it's still moving forward. The increase in loss, because our community is prospering and we're bringing in more than $1 million, we're bringing in, it started off a little more than $1 million and it's gone up over time. That is what has created the lost fund balance, which is now being used to basically facilitate the new public safety building being constructed by allowing us to move our staff around. So that's my explanation.
You can tell me that we're in a position where we're not gonna increase rates.
Now, that's a different question entirely.
Well,
You don't need to raise rates or LOST. But if you choose to raise rates in the future, I don't want to say, Ben promised we're never going to raise rates, because you might have COLA increases or you might have a new project you want to take over.
I understand, but I'm saying right here and now, we're not depleting it to a point that you're gonna come back next year and say, we don't have money,
Correct.
enough money to cover.
We won't come back to say we don't have enough money to cover the debt service payment. That is 100%.
Because that's what it kind of looks like in the spreadsheet today. When I follow it.
But the lost fund gets replenished every,
I understand.
so taking out the reserve, if I'm understanding you correctly.
We're restoring some of the reserves. Instead of making the purchase of the Regions Bank building with general fund reserves, basically you're now making that purchase with at least a portion of it, whatever you decide, with lost funds.
What changed from using the bond to lost? To pay that back, because that's what was said in 23. Was we would pay
When you
ourselves back.
purchased Regions, when you purchased the Regions Bank building. So we had the opportunity to purchase the Regions Bank building to facilitate the staff relocation and the construction of a new public safety building. And at the time, there was sufficient general fund reserves to be able to just take it from general fund or those other areas. I think some came from storms, water and whatnot. And so this is a reconsideration of that change because of the fact that we are not using, because we're setting a higher threshold than 25% for the general fund. We're setting it at 30%. How do we get there? You can only get there through raising rates, which is restricted, or making cuts or and we cut 1.3 million out of the budget, but those cuts don't necessarily all hit the general fund. So even though we made a lot of cuts going back to projects, changes and whatnot, things that were removed and other things from other categories, it's still not every one of those hit the general fund. In fact, it's kind of a little bit even harder to explain because our general fund is not really set up as just a general fund. It's a series of internal funds, which are all general fund related. This goes back to the color coding. For example, the library, if we cut the chiller replacement of $136,000, that benefits the library fund. And on the day of the audit, it actually benefits the general fund because it rolls into the general fund. But for day-to-day purposes, we just naturally segregate fire, police, and we arbitrarily do that. It's not a requirement.
Another question that I had was, there is an $800,000 projected surplus for sewer service fee increases. How did we project such a big jump for that? And I think that probably is what Melissa's referring to of like sewer fees being increased because there's $3.3 million worth of lost transfers out with none going in because of how that's funded. Obviously 1 million going to the debt. So an additional 2.3 million out, but then when you see an 800K sewer service fee increase, to me, it looks like sewer fee increases. So like, where did that projection come from? Like, I'm just trying to figure that out when I look.
So sewer fees are projected at the very beginning with the onset of the project. Were projected by our financial advisors as they relate to the overall bond and the whole bit. With regard to lost, how lost can be used, it was set aside for the payment of debt service on the sewer treatment plant. And anything in excess could be used on anything that was in the bond or in the lost covenants. One of those things is public safety. And so that is why money is transferred out and to take care of public safety, because if you're going to pay for public safety, you have to do it with one of really two different main mechanisms. You have to raise property taxes or you have to use sales taxes. There's not a way to fund your general fund other than taxes and fees. And when more than 2/3 of your budget is tax-based, lost in property tax, you pretty much would need to do away with either a fire or police department to be able to continue operations unless you raise taxes, property, or take it from sales.
So we're saying like the consultant has said, we are expected to see just a normal $800,000 increase in sewer service fees.
I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to, but
Where is that at?
Because you might be bringing up an old document. I'm not sure what exactly.
It's,
It's in 1.1.
Was it in
the
the,
sewer service fees. The
Yeah.
Projected budget amount in FY '24 was 4.2 million. For FY '25, it's 5 million. Is what they were talking about.
I'm just trying to figure out how we would expect such a large jump.
From 4.2 to 5.
Yeah.
Oops.
certainly a good question. Certainly it's something we can invite Michael Maloney in to give some more clarification to.
I would say some of that too is just projecting new homes and businesses in town as well, that we're hoping that we get to capture some of that revenue.
I think when Mike came here originally, it was a discussion at the time about what the percentage increase would be on an average basis because of new homes, new construction and new businesses. Whether or not that plays out is another question, I guess, but I remember that statement correctly, that conversation.
And I think, yeah, and I think council at the time too had talked about possibly gradually raising the sewer rates little bits every year so that there wasn't big increases every 2 or 3 years. That hurt a little bit more than just smaller increases, so.
Some of that also is because obviously the sewer plant is costing us more every year, is that, I mean, and operation and maintenance for that particular plant.
That's still to be determined.
Yeah, and still trying to figure out where we are on that because we knew that there was gonna be, well, previous council knew that as well, and the previous council before that made some decisions that have kind of locked us into some things as well. So we know that there's gonna be some increases because it's new and everything's working as it should right now, but we still are trying to figure out on a yearly basis what the capture of that actual dollar amount is. And the other side of that was that the sewer fee increases would be something that we'd have to look at as either people use more water or less water, or whether or not we actually do need that increase, so.
And it's important to note that every utility fund should be self-sufficient.
It has to be,
And right now, it's not. But
I remember
That's
the conversation from Mike, the projected rates, as far as volume, we were lower than what they had projected as well.
correct. The rates when we went into that were lower than what they had projected in the process.
But again, you're authorizing budgets, you're not authorizing actions. And so that's what we're here for this evening, and we're here to listen to the public. Whenever you're ready.
Is there any other questions for clarification?
I would just make another comment that I don't feel like hiring staff at all is a good idea with our current spending. That's not feasible long-term. It just adds to recurring expenses and then compounds year over year. And that when we do look at our compensation potential changes, that we look at a staffing study to see where our staffing levels are in comparison to our other comparables to see where we lie. So that's just a comment, not really a question. So sorry, man.
Well, if I may, one other thing, just on that, Steve, that we do need to dig in the staffing study, but what I would say is that just what Ben said earlier is that we may or may not hire that. I mean, we can make that decision down the road here, whether or not we hire those other positions too, so. Again, it's just an if we have the ability or can or want to or whatever, then that's what we look at.
Floor? Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak? You can come forward and state your name and address.
You should bring your gavel.
No, don't make me use it. There will be a timer.
I see the timer going there. Oh, there it is. That's awesome. Hi, Kelly Shaw, 101 Phillip Place, Indianola, Iowa. Thank you for all of you in terms of council for your service. Certainly, I've sent a number of emails to, Councilwoman Sones, Councilman Dalby, Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Richardson, and the mayor, and received answers from all of y'all. So thank you for that. I just didn't bother you, Christina, because you're important. There, so I have just a couple questions and more comments, I guess, along the lines of loss that you were mentioning, Ben. And I shot this off to Councilman Richardson the other day. But when you look at page 4 of the packet available to citizens, there are 5 entries there for loss. The 1.3 million, which has been mentioned previously, to the general fund, and thank you, Ben, for explaining that. Have another 300,000 going to streets CIP. Have the 999,700 going to debt service, which I assume is the wastewater treatment plant. There's an extra zero in there, by the way, so
That was a typo.
a scriber's note may be there. I think it's not 9 million, so so about $1 million there. 246,000 going to WRRF and another $500,000 going to sewer CIP. I'm no quant jock, but when I add that up, that's $3.345 million and change. I'm a big fan. I worked hard to get Lost Past here in Indianola, but I don't think we make that much money coming in. I don't know what you have there now, and again, I don't know what the future projections are for Lost. But when we just take FY 2025, that 3.345 and change million is really good performance. Now, granted, I get that's 2 fiscal years and the carryover from what's there, but that's a lot of money. And it's the case that SRF loans can't be paid off early.
That's a good questioning.
Yeah, well, I thought that's what you said in terms of the finance on the wastewater plant can't be paid off early.
I'll answer 47 seconds.
All right. So those are my questions. Again, the $3.345 million is a big amount of money coming out of local option sales tax. The other thing that I'll just mention real briefly, and I've voiced this concern to Mr. Richardson and the mayor, is that when I became mayor 100 years ago, the city of Indianola and IMU had 102 full-time employees. Currently, the city's at 98 full-time employees and IMU's at 40, which is a lot of growth that we've seen in terms of FTEs, but we haven't seen the same growth that in the town of that percentage. And so it's just a little bit of a red flag that I would wave there. HR is a very good example. Roxanne, I'll just wrap up. Roxanne had both entities, both IMU and the city, and now we have 2.5 FTEs in terms of just human resources here. So those are my concerns. Certainly, I know it's largely a moot point given the late stage that y'all are in the process. But the growth seems unsustainable to me, being a budget guy, and the raises as well seem unsustainable. But what really concerns me then is that lost. Thanks, council.
Mayor Shaw, thank you for your comments and your questions, and thanks for coming tonight and speaking on behalf of the public. I think you raised a lot of good questions and a lot of good points that are pertinent to your decision making. And I'm going to try to remember as many as I can, but to be honest, I know the bond covenants for the main sewer loan can't be paid off early. I'm not exactly sure about the SRF, so I can do some research and find that. With regard to
It was lost and the transfers don't take into account any transfers this year because we haven't done any transfers this year.
Oh, yeah, we haven't done transfers yet this year. And there's something else that was right on that. What's that?
The staffing.
Oh, staffing. I think you bring an excellent point up, and it's something that we've been talking about, at least I've been trying to raise quite a bit, and that is so in some respects, we have raised staffing because we had a deficiency in staffing. For example, we've gone from when Chief Chia started having 1 full-time employee in the fire department to now having 17 to meet our needs, to be able to respond appropriately within our community and the surrounding areas that we serve. And for many years, we've worked to build that up. And so, yes, over time, we have staffed up our police, our fire and whatnot. We have taken on the IWC this year. And so that's additional full-timers there and additional part-timers, as well as the need to serve additional full-timers and part-timers through additional HR and a facilities person that we had deficiency. Arguably, one of the things that we have not been good at is maintaining the facilities that we have. And if we're going to ask the public for more dollars for a new public safety building, we need to have a facilities person that's taking care of what we have. So staffing up in those capacities was necessary, and it brought us to where we are today. Perhaps, taking on increases of the past wouldn't have made us in a deficiency to where we are to having to jump up now. But one of the things that I think is a concern is I actually also believe that we are overstaffed. You bring up a really good point, the fact that IMU in the city is now that many more employees. That is because we are paying for more in duplicative efforts because we are not united. And anything we can do to work more closely with IMU and to create a plan to bring us closer together means that we can share resources and we can do so more cost effectively for the benefit of the ratepayer and the taxpayer, because I think redundancy has really been a howl for us and holds us back compared to other cities of our size and employment. So all good points. Thank you.
It's a question about the loss and the projection of that. Do we feel comfortable with that projection of the loss funds?
It includes money from this fiscal year as well,
Okay,
so.
perfect.
And that's why it's an up to dollar amount, because it depends on if we do the transfers this year or if we wait and do them next year.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Any other comments, questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a first and second motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Stones. Ray,
Aye.
Moving on to item number 2, I need a first and second motion on a resolution adopting the fiscal year 25 budget.
Move.
Second.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Jackie?
Councilmember Stones.
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Armstrong,
No.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on, I need a first and second motion on a resolution revoking the pre-levy resolution number 2024-058 adopted on March 18th, 2024.
Moved.
And this would just be revoking that pre-levy. If we're not utilizing it.
Correct.
Correct, I have to take it to the auditor so they don't try and collect taxes.
Perfect. Is there any other questions on that? Jackie?
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Stones.
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
And then moving on to other business. Item A is I need a first and second motion to enter into closed session in accordance with Iowa Code 1.51J to discuss the purchase or sale of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for that property or reduce the governmental body would receive for that property. First, second?
So moved.
Ron was all over it.
Your second?
Yeah.
Second, all right. Jackie?
Councilmember Armstrong.
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Stones.
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Okay. We go into closed session. Visitors here, are they down the hall?